Sorry, what topic are you discussing?
I'm talking about the Ukraine situation to understand what people think about it.
Politics.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Do you have any questions?
The
Or should I ask you a couple?
Well, as you wish. You can ask me, though I'm here to.
Well, the first question is very simple. Is that the specific reason you chose Ukraine?
As a country?
Well, yeah, in your settings you have either the whole world or a specific country.
Oh, I'm not that experienced, but yes, I picked Ukraine for that.
To talk about the situation?
Yes?
Got it. Will you ask a question, or should I? What's easier for you?
Well, my question for the guys from Ukraine is this. How do they envision the further development of events? What's going to happen?
We see future events like this. We liberate Ukraine's territory within its 1991 borders. First point, we will do everything possible for the demilitarization and denuclearization of the Russian Federation. We'll strip you of your nuclear weapons so you cannot brandish them. And thirdly, if at all possible, of course, dismember this state into several constituent parts, or at the very least, have some of its regions secede and become sovereign nations. Otherwise, life will be unbearable for us.
Good plan.
I think it's an excellent plan.
It seems hardly feasible to me.
Well, it's okay, we'll take it slow. The longest road begins with the first step.
Yes, but so far it's the opposite.
On the contrary, what?
Well, from what I see, at least from the frontline reports, it's a movement to the west.
To the west? Are we talking about the last 8 months or just the past week?
No, in 8 months.
Aha! So, for the past 8 months, the movement to the west has included the expulsion of Russian troops from the Zhytomyr region, Kiev region, Chernihiv region, Sumy region, Kharkiv region, a part of the Kherson region from Snake Island, and the sinking of the Black Sea Fleet cruiser Moskva. This represents Russia's movement to the west. Right? Or am I mistaken somewhere?
Well, all these actions are carefully considered and carried out with prior consent.
I'll say it again. Was I wrong somewhere? Did you advance any further?
Look, what I perceive regarding the current Ukraine situation is merely the establishment of certain borders for Luhansk and Donetsk, potentially involving the occupation of Kherson and Kharkiv regions as well.
Kherson is occupied.
And Odessa, okay.
Kherson's occupied. You didn't take Kharkiv. You were kicked out of the Kharkiv region. Where's your movement to the west?
Well, for now we've stopped.
For now you've stopped, but in the next wave you'll push further. Is that right?
I don't think it's needed.
Well, whether it's necessary or not, you mentioned that you currently perceive a westward movement, but I'm presenting evidence of an eastward movement. Looking at February and March, there was a movement to the west. Indeed, that cannot be denied. But for the past 8 months, there has been a significant movement towards the east. Where do you now see any movement to the west?
Well, I also don't see any movement to the east. I see it constantly wavering.
Wait a minute. Your troops were stationed in Obolon. In fact, your sabotage and reconnaissance groups were wandering through Obolon. That's the northern outskirts of Kiev. You also seized the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. You were present in the Zhytomyr region, the Kiev region, the Chernihiv region, the Sumy region, and the Kharkiv region. You were expelled from these areas. Where do you observe any westward movement?
Well, look, wait. Was it kicked out, or was it a decision to retreat or leave? Yes, to liberate.
Did you decide to retreat simply because you wanted to, or was it because, if you'll excuse my language, they gave you hell in those territories? Well, with javelins, NLAWs, and so on? Or did you just advance to Kiev and Chernihiv, hold your positions, engage in some shooting, then decide, no folks, we'll make a gesture of goodwill and return? Do you truly believe this logic?
I believe in the logic. It's a fact, and that it happened is 100% certain. If it were necessary to hold those regions, if they needed to be held, they probably would have held them. Why?
No, you were kicked out of those regions. You were precisely hit on your communication lines, your warehouses, your fuel and lubricant depots.
But why? Why hold those regions?
I don't know why you would hold them, because the stated goal was the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. How can you accomplish that without capturing Kiev? Please, explain it to me.
But look, you can't do that quickly either.
Oh, so slowly then.
Well, of course.
Understood. So, are you currently accumulating forces to resume the advance westward, or is it eastward after all?
Most likely it was for the purpose of, well, initially attempting to come to an agreement, because for me, well, about a watershed.
What kind?
Who ends up with what and how power is secured?
Agree with whom? With the Ukrainian government?
Zelensky.
Haven't you understood in 8 months that there will be no agreements? You were driven out of 5 regions. What is there left to negotiate? Zelensky explicitly said no agreements would be made until Ukraine's territory is liberated.
But you know everything changes.
Yes, everything changes, but the Ukrainian army is gaining momentum, counterattacking. And the fact that you conducted a mobilization hasn't, impacted the combat operations whatsoever.
But those groups are not at the front yet.
The mobilized troops are not there yet. We already have cases where your mobilized men died on our front lines within 4 or 5 days. You don't know about that? Weren't you informed?
I'm not exactly briefed. I follow the situation like you, through mass media.
And you don't see any evidence of the Russian army's movement to the east?
You know, I don't see facts of the Russian army's movement to the east, just as I don't see facts of the Ukrainian army's movement anywhere. But look, I understand.
I just told you, I even pointed out with my fingers the regions from which you withdrew. You were present there in February and March, but by the end of October you are no longer there.
Well, excuse me, that means nothing.
Ah, so it doesn't. I get it now. The sinking of the cruiser Moskva and Ukraine liberating 5 regions means nothing. Okay, I get it. I didn't before, but now I do. Right.
No, come on.
I get it. Let's drop this topic. We're just going in circles. I understand. I have some questions for you. You've been asking me questions. Now allow me to ask one. In your opinion, what is the reason for Russia's attack on Ukraine?
Potential NATO entry nearing Russian Federation borders.
That's it. So, the standard answers. I'm just not interested in talking to a Skabayeva in trousers.
What's your opinion?
My opinion is a different matter. If you want, I'll voice it. But I'm not interested in talking to a Skabayeva in pants, someone who just parrots the official talking points and doesn't even think or see that 5 regions have been liberated from Russian troops.
I have thought about it. You have to understand, I'm not saying it's the absolute truth.
You see, your opinion isn't original. That's precisely the whole problem.
Perhaps, but I'm attempting to find some compromises within my own perspective because I realize that my opinion is not the ultimate truth.
Would you like us to try and analyze the reasoning behind your answer, or would you prefer me to state my own first?
I'm interested. I'm interested in your position.
My position is quite straightforward. It stems from the imperialistic thinking prevalent within your society and among your leadership. It didn't just appear today, or yesterday, or even 8 years ago. It emerged with the collapse of the Soviet Union. While Ukraine mostly welcomed the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russian society, of course, was initially in shock. During the turbulent 90s, they had other things to worry about. Everyone was just trying to survive. However, by the late 90s, your society had, so to speak, shed its economic problems. And, refusing to acknowledge the collapse of the Soviet Union, and equally refusing to recognize Ukraine's independence and the unique identity of the Ukrainian people, it did everything in its power to turn everything back. And that, right there, is one of the primary reasons for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. These conflicts didn't just appear in 2022 or even in 2014. We can also look back at the Tuzla Island incident, if you recall the conflict from 2003.
So you're saying it's about territorial interests?
These are not just territorial interests, but rather interests rooted in shared values. For the typical Ukrainian, the nation's territory, Ukraine itself, holds the most value. However, for the typical Russian, the value lies in the Soviet Union, which disintegrated and, in their view, must be reinstated in any possible way, reclaiming what can be restored with whatever strength they can muster. That is the reason. Ukraine's entry into NATO is not even close to being relevant for the simple fact that at the time of Russia's attack on Ukraine in 2014, we were not members of NATO. Our constitution had a provision stating the neutrality of Ukraine. And what's even funnier is that until around 2007 or 2008, both Russia and Ukraine participated in NATO's Partnership for Peace program. You can easily find this information on Wikipedia.
I know that.
To NATO, they actually reached NATO. What was the threat here? There was no threat. In 2004, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia joined NATO. You have a direct border there with Estonia as well as with Latvia and Lithuania, if I recall correctly, with 3 states. Didn't that present a problem for you back in 2004?
But we weren't taken into NATO.
You didn't apply to NATO, just like we didn't.
No application?
Work on it. No, official applications to NATO were not actually submitted. They simply were not. If you can find one and show it to me, I'll believe you then.
Look, well...
Even we didn't submit an official application. Finland and Sweden were the ones who actively submitted one after the conflict started. They formally lodged an application as required to Stoltenberg, complete with signature and seal. Neither you nor we ever submitted any applications.
Look, the president is standing there, right, speaking to the whole world and saying, accept us into NATO. What other application do you need?
An official application is what's needed, similar to the ones Sweden and Finland submitted. When parliaments vote, an international document is created. This document serves as the application, which is then submitted to Stoltenberg, the head of NATO. That is precisely what an application is. The president's arguments that we desire to join NATO, well, that's merely the president's wish, the elite's wish. No official application was ever filed. You are confusing 2 different things, the legal aspects and the actual facts of the situation.
I understand, but it turns out that in a totalitarian state, a decision made by one person is...
Is our state totalitarian?
No. I'm talking about Russia. Russia is a totalitarian state with one man ruling. Therefore, one person makes the decisions. So he says, guys...
There are just words, and then there is a proper official application that needs to be submitted. Where is it? On what date did you have an official application to join NATO? Was there one from you?
All right, I'm not sure. If you're dealing with official concepts, then...
What other kind are there? Hold on.
That's right. I sort of support your point of view.
Neither we nor you had an official application, so you're this whole...
I agree.
The logic that something posed a threat to you, or that someone was joining NATO, well, it simply doesn't align with reality. Do you grasp that?
I see you're a man.
Your opinion. You're a person who appreciates... I appreciate both de jure and de facto matters. I am a historian by profession. If I were strictly a lawyer, I'd certainly emphasize specific decree numbers, dates, and similar legal references. But I'm not strictly a lawyer, so I can hardly cite the specific law or anything. Yet, there was no official application.
Look then, based on the de jure facts, analyzing the current Ukraine situation, you say, well, they captured Snake Island, entered the Ukrainian, Zaporizhia, there, Chernobyl, yes, it was occupied, then they left. Now see.
An army doesn't just leave voluntarily like that. They were driven out by force.
Driven out.
The weapons that our Western allies provided us back when your columns were advancing as if on parade, and these columns were utterly destroyed by what appeared to be partisan detachments, though they were in fact the armed forces of Ukraine. That is precisely why they withdrew.
Kicked out, no doubt.
Yes.
At the same time, there was no support from our side to stay there either. You have to agree.
No, I don't agree.
De facto, there was no support.
What additional support did you still require? Your Su aircraft were dropping unguided bombs over Chernihiv.
Look, here's a hypothetical situation. So,
We're starting a hypothetical discussion again. Let's just discard those hypothetical theories.
You and I don't have the facts. You're saying...
We see the reality as it is. What more facts could you possibly need?